Welcome to the Desert Sanctuary with Carl and Laura Forehand.
Often when we have doubts about religion or simply want to ask questions, it can feel like we are wandering out into the desert.
We would like to invite you to join our sanctuary, the Desert Sanctuary.
We've tried to pick guests that would resonate with and challenge us and our fellow seekers here in the desert.
We believe that a key to the journey is to keep asking good questions, and we believe that all stories are sacred.
Our hope is that you will find life and healing for your body and mind, and that you will be able to be who you are and be who you are.
And now, here is our show. Hi, welcome to the Desert Sanctuary podcast. I'm Laura Forehand, and I'm here without Carl today, going solo again. But I do have one of my very favorite guests ever, and it is my son, Jordan, and he's here from Taiwan, as probably all of you know, because we always talk about how our son lives in Taiwan, and he does another podcast called The Unlearning Curve with Carl and Stuart Deloney. And so he's very popular because of that podcast. That is my favorite podcast, I have to say, even though we're recording on the Desert Sanctuary. I love sitting in and listening to you guys just talk about stuff. And it gets very, it's serious, it's satire, it's funny. But anyway, welcome to the podcast. It's always great to see your face as your mother.
My best. I was going to say it makes me popular, but maybe I don't know with how many people, but with you for sure. You're
That's
definitely
okay.
one of the bigger fans of that podcast.
You know,
It's okay with me too.
yeah,
I'm not trying to take
no. And what I was going to say is Dad and I just had this conversation last week or the week before, about just how he had asked somebody to be on the unlearning curve, and they kind of hem-hawed around and all that, but they basically said that they weren't going to, be on the Desert Sanctuary because it wasn't big enough. And so I guess that doesn't bother me so much, because that wasn't my whole intention in starting it. I wanted to start the Desert Sanctuary because we were coming out of the Christian organizational machine, and I was hurting, and I knew there were other people, and people weren't really talking about how, the organization that we call the church is hurting people. Maybe that's not everybody's story, but there are people out there that have been hurt by the church, or who, you and your sisters, grew up and were just like, this is kind of bullshit, and, kind of want to talk about why we think it's a bunch of trash. And so, that was my whole reason, whether I wasn't looking to get famous or anything else. So like you said, the numbers don't necessarily bother me. I don't know if they bother your dad. I really don't want to speak for him, but I think he's more aware of them, maybe the numbers and things like that. But seriously, for those of you listening now, if you haven't listened to The Unlearning Curve, I would highly recommend it, because you guys get into some really deep topics, but you do it in, a funny, I won't say it's lighthearted, because I think you really do challenge the Christian organization. But I definitely encourage people to listen to that podcast. But anyway, we are here to speak on the Desert Sanctuary. But the reason I chose the topic we're going to talk about today is because I sat in on the last recording that you all did, and somehow it was coming up about teaching the Bible in school. And so, that's kind of a hot button for me as an educator, seeing that states are, and one state in particular, but there's other states that have been we're going to post the 10 Commandments everywhere and blah, blah, blah. So that's something that kind of gets under my skin a little bit. But so I wanted to talk about that. But I also prefaced you by saying, I want you to kind of give me a little lesson here, if you can, as much as you can, because you do a lot of research. You love You do. I mean, and you write
Yeah.
for, I mean, you've been published. What have you been published in? What kind of,
I think currently I have two like scholarly articles published in like academic journals.
right. Okay. That's what I was like. What do you call them? I don't want to call them a magazine. They're academic journals. Okay. Because that's, I think that's important. I do. I think that's an amazing accomplishment too. But, and you do a lot of,
I'm a little more cynical about like the
are you?
academia. I think it's like
Yeah.
because like when I go to those things, like everyone's just like, "Oh, where are you doing your PhD? This is such like interesting read." I'm like, I have a bachelor's degree. I'm not like I do, I research stuff and like I don't
Yeah.
know. My friend was doing his PhD, so like we would read similar. He'd be like, "I read this scholarly article," and then like we would kind of debate about it, and then I'd like go read it. So I guess like I did some of it, but
Yeah, but I think that's interesting because I love that you don't just because my personality, I like hear something and then I panic about it, because I think, oh my gosh, that's the way it is everywhere. And
mhm.
I feel like you're more calm and you do your research and things like that. So,
I
um,
feel like the more you read like actual research, the more you realize like there are no like hard and fast answers, which is
mm,
like I guess could be disconcerting, but it's also like feels kind of reassuring because like the data is everywhere, like it's all over
right,
the place. So it's like
right.
yeah, that's obviously painting with a really broad brush because like yeah, there are some things that are like okay, we're pretty sure like this is the cause of this other thing or whatever, but like generally speaking, like you can what like especially when we're talking about I'm thinking of educationally, right? Like in terms of like educational theory and stuff like that. Not that I'm an expert or anything. I don't have a PhD
Mm-hmm,
in education or anything,
mm-hmm,
but like you can find a lot of like disparate research, which again, like you're like, oh, there's no like one solution, but it's also like, yeah, but like this applies to like certain people at certain times. Different
right,
students are different, right? Like there's
right,
so many individual variables that like it's like okay, oh, well, maybe I'll be okay.
yeah,
There's not
yeah,
like one silver bullet that I'm missing because it doesn't
right.
exist.
Right. Well, and before people are like, "Oh, this is just going to be an educational podcast." Well, yeah, because we're both educators. However,
Too bad. Suck
yeah,
it up. All right.
no, but I mean, this really because feel like the lines are so blurred anymore between education and Christianity here in America.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's like in Taiwan, and you can share your experience with that. But I wanted to start out because
Not like America, I can tell
not
you
like
that.
America. Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
always good, but it is
Hmm.
going.
Yeah. No, I do think it's interesting though, because you do have kind of a different religious, um, I don't know if this is going to be the right word and you can correct me if it's wrong, but like a different religious sect there, with like Taoism and Buddhism and things like that. But you
Hmm.
teach at a Catholic school, am I correct?
I
Do you
do.
still
I
teach
do.
there? Yeah. So, I mean, you see kind of Christianity there as well. So, um, but okay, so I really wanted to start because whenever I think about the topic we're going to talk about today, which
Hmm.
is like whether it be prayer in school or 10 commandments in school or what we're seeing now, like you've got to teach the Bible in school.
Hmm.
Can you kind of give me, and you, like you said earlier, you can paint with a broad brush, you can get as specific as you want, but explain to me the idea of separation of church and state. First of all, you hear like, oh, that's in the Constitution. And then you
Yeah.
hear, no, it's not in the Constitution. So, like, give me your knowledge on that.
It depends. Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, it's not that complicated, but it is like obviously if you want to say it's not in the Constitution, okay, then uh, neither is the right to bear arms
Mm,
because it's the First Amendment to the Constitution,
okay.
right? Like the first article of like or article, I don't know, like the First Amendment to the Bill of Rights, right?
Mm,
But it just says the First Amendment is just Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Like
okay.
so, it's like you can practice whatever religion you want, but the government can't make any rules about religion. Basically, like they can't make a law that says like you have to, like for instance, like Sharia. for instance, would be
Mm-hmm.
an example of like Congress implementing something that isn't allowed, which is hilarious because one of my buddies in Texas just had to vote on a bill that said, do you, I think it might have been like a ballot initiative, right? So it's like kind of like a poll, like
Mm-hmm.
yeah. But anyway, because I think it was non-binding. But anyway, it's like, do you think that we should ban Sharia in Texas or something? It's just like
Hmm.
just such nonsense because again, the Constitution, or at least the First Amendment to the Constitution, which is part of the Constitution, because
Right.
it's an amendment to the Constitution, like
Right.
it says you can't do that. So it's just dumb. It's just this. All of this is just like either unconstitutional or it's people on the usually on the right wing that are just kind of like using this as either dog whistles or like just I don't know, just ways to complain and like get attention. Basically,
Yeah.
I think it's nonsense. I mean, obviously, it has real implications if they're actually going to force people to teach the Bible. But again, I don't. We kind of had this conversation between you and me, but also a little bit, I think, on learning curve. But like, I don't think it's going to matter. Like, I don't think this implementing a state religion is not the way to get like more adherence. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right. I'm curious, like, how they're able to do it. You know what I mean? And I say that because it's
Because
like,
the rule of law doesn't apply. I mean, like, I can't. You're going to publish this on places like YouTube, so I can't say everything that I want to say. But like, think about what like the current administration has been involved in, whether either proven or like serious accusations. Like, the
mhm.
law doesn't apply to rich people. That's just like what the issue is, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
and until we like hold people like that accountable, and
Right.
like that's it. Like, if you want to, let's do the old history thing because we're talking about the Constitution. About 100 years after the Constitution, we had a little thing called the Civil War in the United States, and
Mhm.
basically all of the leading people on the Confederacy were kind of allowed to go as they were. A similar thing happened, I don't know, 80 years later during the Second World War, where a lot of the like leading bad guys in that war also were allowed to just walk free. And I'm not saying I'm like, we should just implement like the death penalty because I'm kind of against it, though
Yeah.
I maybe would make certain caveats, but like certainly we should punish people that do stuff like that, like some of the worst crimes against humanity. But like obviously, if there are no repercussions, then people feel like they can get away with it.
Right.
So maybe we should actually like enact some sort of punishment on these people. And
Right.
again, this is not like a call for like vigilantism or anything.
No,
Like,
no, no. I get you. I get it. Like, I guess it just
we should have state public trials.
Steve.
I'm kind of serious about that, but anyway.
I think it's so like interesting because I mean, I don't know how you feel as an American in Taiwan, but I feel like here when you hear things like, well, in Texas now, the teachers are going to have to teach the Bible. That's going to be part of their, curriculum, if you will.
Mhm.
And so I'm just like, but if that's like a quote unquote against the Constitution, because to me, if we're teaching the Bible, that means we're insisting that we teach Christianity, which to me sounds like it goes against the First Amendment because we're kind of forcing, if you will, students to learn one religion over any other religion. So how, like, I'm not understanding how this becomes okay. Because you can't tell me that even in Texas, a very conservative red state, that everybody is like, cool, yeah, let's teach the Bible, let's do it.
I'm sure they're not. I mean, but the issue, like, and the other thing is that it'll, like, this is another thing I was going to say, is it'll be challenged. The problem is that, like, well, one of the good things is that in Texas, the judges are elected. So obviously the bad thing about that is that the voter base is very conservative. So
Right.
a lot of really conservative justices, but there is like democratic election of judges. And I would have to go check, but I'm pretty sure they like have pretty routine elections. So like they don't have lifetime appointments or anything, which is kind of sick. Cause like, look at the Supreme Court,
Yeah.
But the problem is, again, look at the Supreme Court, because if it gets appealed up to the Supreme Court, like it's packed
Right.
with conservative justices.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, the other thing, like, how does it happen? I mean, like, who has the levers of power? Who controls like the monopoly on violence? Like, it's the state. So like, that's just what it's going to be. Until again, it could get challenged in court, and in a lot of cases, like as much as like, especially this current administration breaks the law, like a lot of times they'll kind of just stop if the courts tell them to stop. So that's one possibility. Another possibility is people like teachers, especially like kind of protests. Now, you can look at like Florida and Arizona as examples, but like they sometimes will just find ways to replace teachers. Like they'll just say, oh, anyone who had a STEM job before, like you automatically get a teacher's license and that kind of stuff. But I don't know. The answer is like, we'll see. But like people kind of also just have to like get more serious about like paying attention to politics. Cause like big part of the problem is just people don't understand like what's going on. And so when they go to the ballot box, they just vote for whoever's advertisement they see more, or, you know, whoever their papa or friend told them to vote for, or whatever.
Right.
Like, so, and then that's, I mean, that perpetuates the problem. The problem is like, it's manifold, like it's manifest, and like the whole system is kind of broken, and we really probably should do like a ranked choice voting system and have like a multi-party democracy. But I don't know. Those are all like long-term things that we have to deal with. But I mean, part one could just be people paying more attention to local politics and making sure they vote in like local elections. That can make a big difference.
Yeah. Because I bring all this up because I just feel like more and more in this, and I'm speaking for the United States, and I'm speaking as an educator. So you chime in, like if you feel the same thing as an educator in Taiwan. But I just feel like more and more is put on the school system or the teachers, because they are in the school system. So let me give you an example. So a good friend of mine, excuse me, who I teach with, she sent me like a TikTok video or something, just about how, and this particular teacher teaches kindergarten, and just about how teachers now, like you can now in some states, I guess you can send your child to school, your 5-year-old to kindergarten, and they're not potty trained. And the teachers are now expected to do that. And one of the comments about that was, so when the teacher is trying to teach bathroom independence to this 5-year-old, what are you doing with the other 20 students in your class? Kind of like, I just feel, and we were talking about this before we hit record, but it used to be that when you went to kindergarten, when your sisters went to kindergarten, you had already had either preschool, or I worked with you at home, something to that effect, so that you at least, let's say, knew what your letters were when you went to kindergarten. Now with the standards, kindergarten teachers are like, kids are going to be expected to read, let's say, 3-word sentences, or CVC words, which is consonant, vowel, consonant words, like cat and dog, and what we would consider your simpler words, but they're easy to sound out. So that's where we were 30 years ago. And now, like, if we're bringing in all this, we got to teach them how to, be independent in the bathroom, or social emotional skills and things like that. And listen, I'm going to preface this by saying I am all about trauma informed. I consider myself a trauma informed teacher. I know, I've heard some of the things that you do with your students, and like, I'm amazed at just how you really take that social emotional aspect into your classroom. And sometimes you do have to stop the curriculum to deal with the social emotional aspect, because we know that if the prefrontal cortex is offline, we're not going to get any learning done anyway. So sometimes we do have to stop and do that. But it just seems like so much is now being put on educators, and now we're looking at, oh, well, we're going to have to start, in certain states like Texas. Now we've got to bring the Bible into it.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, how do you feel about that? I guess I'm kind of conflicted because, like I said, I'm all about being trauma informed. I'm all about setting up my students for success, and that means kind of, doing this self-reg, co-reg, kind of have that mentality in my classroom. But it is also very overwhelming to
Hmm.
think of all of that in addition to, oh, well, we do have the map test at the end of the year. We do have, end of course exams and all that other stuff. How do we get it all in?
Yeah.
It can be very daunting. And that's a lot. I just threw a lot at you. So take what you will and, answer what you want to out of that.
I think part of it is that, like, if they're not, honestly, like, when it comes to like the religious parts of it, like, if they're not testing it, I don't think it's really going to be a deal anyway.
Mm.
It's dumb and it's unconstitutional, but like, honestly, like, I don't know. In like, for me though, like, the public schools that I've taught at are much more lax on like what they require in terms of the schools. Now, obviously, like, again, when you bring standardized testing into it, and then like kids are getting bad scores on tests,
Hmm.
that's another thing. But like in terms of like, oh, this is the curriculum that you have to teach, like, I just wonder how much it's going to be enforced. And the other thing is just like sometimes teachers should just like break, just not do it, or just
Hmm.
protest it and be like, okay, sure, I'll teach about Christianity alongside Islam and you
Right.
know Taoism and Hinduism or whatever. Like, uh, I just I don't know. In terms of like the point about like continually adding to like teachers' workload, like, yeah, it's that's just a thing, um, because of how like um, especially American society is kind of like a lot of cultural institutions are just kind of like falling away or like losing their institutional power, and so yeah, those things just kind of get glommed on to like whether it's the family or the government, like the state or whatever. Like if they're not taking care of stuff, like, I mean, education in a way is the state, right? But like
Hmm.
it's more complicated than that. But point being is like, yeah, it's kind of just like dumped on teachers. And
Right.
I mean, my thing is like I don't really know what to do with that except for like hopefully communities can come together and like have better dialogue between parents and teachers. But obviously that's fraught with issues as well.
Hmm.
Um, More funding for schools would be great because there's like
Yeah.
a pretty close um, correlation between like, or like there's a lot of data basically through academic study that says like there's a strong connection between spending on education and also teacher pay
Hmm.
and academic outcomes, like
Hmm.
positive academic outcomes. So it's like, yeah. But in terms of like what the answer is, I don't, I don't
Yeah, I
know.
know.
Like protest probably is like one thing. Like one thing I'll say about America is like the teachers union is very strong. We
Hmm.
have nothing like that. Like Taiwanese unions are like, for lack of a better phrase, dog shit. Like they're just
Hmm.
awful. Like, and um, they like gatekeep them super hard. Like because, and this, don't get it twisted. Like not like people will be like, oh, Taiwan is a Confucian society, and like everything is about Confucianism. Confucianism has an impact. It's more complicated than that, but there is like a lot of stuff that's like connected to testing, which is a
Hmm.
very Confucian idea. And so like all the unions here, but especially the teachers union, has like this ridiculous test that you have to pass, which has like a 2% pass rate or
Oh,
something.
wow.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. It's just I don't know. If you want a cynical answer, like, I think it's a way to keep people out of the union because they want to keep unions weak because it helps capitalists. But um, I don't know. I think that's one way that like American teachers can get something is like use their unions.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, but it's hard because like it's dangerous to protest, especially under the current administration. Like
Oh, yeah,
a lot of times that gets punished. Um,
exactly.
but then, I mean, there's also the point of like once you get too big, they can't punish you. Like,
That's
you know,
true. If you look at
and
some of the protests, you know what I mean, like No Kings protests and stuff like that. Some of
yeah,
those are absolutely humongous.
yeah.
You know, not to divert our conversation, but yeah,
Well, and again, and like if those events happen, and especially if they're peaceful, there's like not much they can do. Like,
right.
and if they do something, then it looks worse. I mean, that's whatever movement you want to go to, like the civil rights movement in the United States, whatever. Like most of those nonviolent movements, when the state is overbearing,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's with violence or just with whatever it is, like
Mm-hmm.
crackdowns on them or like even negative media coverage. Like a lot of times that endears more people to the struggle that's happening.
Right.
So
Yeah.
also
And
sorry my light went out, so I look like I'm in like the witness protection
that's
program
okay.
right now,
I don't
but I
think
can't help it.
I don't know if Dad puts this on. I mean, I have no makeup on, so
Oh,
enjoy.
perfect. All right, then I don't even
Enjoy,
need to worry
everybody.
about my
No, you don't
lighting.
need to
All
worry
right,
about
that's
anything.
great. Beautiful.
When you mentioned something about educational funding, so
Yeah.
you'll be proud of me. I did a little bit of research this morning.
Hell yeah.
So, yeah. So, like when I was looking up this information about I was specifically focusing on Texas because that's where,
Hmm.
supposedly they're going to be teaching the Bible now in
Hmm.
public schools.
Yeah.
But Texas is like I looked up like low states with the lowest literacy rate, and Texas is number 4, so they're very low
Hmm.
in literacy. But then also I looked up their funding, educational funding, and they rank between 38th and 42 in the
Yeah.
nation
Yeah.
in funding. So
Yep.
talk a little bit about how those two things are connected. You kind of touched on it. So
Yeah, it's what I was saying before. Like you can look, it's not a one-to-one connection
right.
because it's more complicated than that. Because like
Hmm.
you could have like whatever, like there's just so many variables, right? Like do you have funding for Medicare or Medicaid or food stamps, and do you have like help for single parents? Do you have like publicly subsidized housing, whatever? Like, but usually those things kind of go together because if you have the kind of social safety net, you're probably also like funding education. So basically, the more like public funding goes up, like the better outcomes are.
Okay, gotcha.
It's not like
Yeah.
again, it's not perfect because you could have like a super well funded education program, but you put a bunch of uh, like means testing in that
Hmm.
like cuts a bunch of people out of it, like they always try to do with like healthcare and stuff. Because I mean, I don't know. Only I try not to live by too many mantras, but one of them is like if you want to do a social program, it needs to be universal because like universal programs work, and when you means test, it just doesn't.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, the more funding you have for education, the better education outcomes are going to. Like, same thing goes for teacher pay, which is obviously funding education as well.
Right. Right.
That's just what it is. Like, it's not really that debatable or that. I mean, there's complexities to it, right? Like I was saying, but like overall, it's not that complex. Like,
Yeah.
education, you'll get better outcomes.
I think it's interesting though because we're talking about a state that, when I'm speaking about Texas, we're speaking about a state that is ranked 4th as the lowest for literacy.
Yeah.
But that's not where they want to focus. And that's the thing that has me like perplexed because I do know that Texas is very rigid on state testing as well. So like if you want to bring that, US literacy rate up,
Yeah.
then why wouldn't we focus more on literacy? Because literacy doesn't just help with reading. Okay? When you think about math, there's
Yeah.
story problems. And
Yeah.
you have to understand what you're reading in those story problems in order to problem solve. There's reading in science and understanding, nature and social.
Yeah.
I mean, across the board. I remember when I taught at in my first district, I had a first grade student. Bless, I will never forget this. But his dad was a farmer,
Mm.
and he struggled with reading. And he told me one day, he said, "Well, I don't have to know how to read. I'm just going to be a farmer." And I was like, "Whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, 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 whoa!
Yeah.
Everybody needs to know how to read. You're going
Yeah.
to have to know how to, what if your combine breaks down? You got to know how to, read in order to fix it. Or, I don't know anything about farming, so I'm not going to pretend like I do, but I'm sure there's ways that you lay out your crops, and you got to know how to read, fertilizer instructions and all that.
Yeah.
You just reading is across the board.
You got to be
It's
able to read the menu at the local diner, and like
exactly.
you
Yeah.
just have to be able to read. Like it's just a reality. Like,
Right.
but
So my question is like,
that's
why
not
aren't,
new though. Like there's a super long history of anti-intellectualism in America, especially in conservative areas. But anyway, sorry.
we'll talk a little bit about that.
Just that I mean, it's long and complex, but like part of, in my opinion, part of the conservative program has been disassembling education, especially public education. Whether it's John Birch or whatever any of these like conservative groups are, a lot of times what they want to do is like heavily privatize education, which is, I mean, look at what the Trump administration is doing.
Mm-hmm.
The people they put in charge, the DeVos family, etc., like very heavily lobbying in favor of defunding public education and like creating like charter schools and private Christian schools like this. Because when you do that, when you have those kinds of like quote unquote alternative schools or private religious schools, then you can like legally practice propaganda and indoctrination. I mean, all education to some degree is that. Like, let's just be honest. But like, when it's in the hands of like the populace, the people in a democracy, hopefully that will be kind of like a positive thing that helps everyone. When it's in the hands of a private institution, of course, it's going to be used for whatever their means are, which is usually making money and making sure certain people in power stay in power. But yeah, anyway,
but that's my whole thing is like, so why we have Christian schools? We live an hour away in either direction from a Christian school. So, and I'm in the state of Missouri, so I'm not really speaking, but I'm sure there's plenty of Christian schools in the state of Texas and probably any state. Yeah. And so why can't we just leave the, teachings of Jesus to those schools? Because it's a Christian school. So why are we having now to funnel all that into our public school systems? Especially because like not everybody, and I mean, I live in a very small town. Yeah. But even in a very small town, and you'll remember this because you used to work at a convenience store, and I had that owner's daughter in my first grade class, and they are from India, and they do not practice Christianity. And I remember doing like Christmas around the world. And the parents asked me, "Hey, is it okay if our child shares what we do, like our religion during holidays and things like that?" I'm like, absolutely. Like, but I kind of diverted off of that, but just why are we like here in rural America? I would say 99.9% of the people are going to call themselves Christian, whether they, whatever. And we don't have another option here. Like you would, if you wanted your child to go to a Christian school, they would have to drive an hour in either direction. But my thing is, if we have these Christian schools, these charter schools, and I don't know if charter schools are based on like religious affiliation or not, but why are we now bringing it into the public schools? We have those options if we want, and we have church and Sunday school.
Yeah.
Dad and I just counted yesterday. We have about 1,200 people in our town,
Mhm.
and we have 5 churches.
Yeah.
Take your kid to Sunday school, right? Or again, if that's something that you're like, they need more Jesus than just on Sundays. Okay,
Yeah.
well, mom, dad, I mean, and first of all,
You're
I
not
think
thinking like a fundamentalist or like a fascist though. That's your problem. Is you're too open minded and like, oh, like you should be. No, what they want to do is they want to create factories, especially for like the lower class, like the working class kids, that send them through and create good little like workers that freely engage in like the use of the opiate of the masses. Like that's what it is. Like they want their kids to go to the really high level schools and go to Yale and then become members of the government. They want everyone else to just shut the fuck up and like slurp up their slop. Like that's just what it is. I don't know.
that's
I
just
don't think. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm being like a bit like overly cynical, but I think for a lot of people, like they genuinely, and this is probably going to be what I talk about on the unlearning curve next. Is just like I think as much as methinks the lady doth protest too much with the Republican Party because like they basically scream foul every time anything about Islam is mentioned about Sharia law and blah blah blah. Blah. They're trying to, and then that's what they want. Like
Yeah.
that's really what they want is they want everyone to be forced to believe the way they do. It's not about freedom because if it was about freedom, everyone would be, whether when we're talking about social services and stuff, that's a little bit mixed because that's more about economics. But like in terms of like what we're allowed to do, we would allow everyone to do whatever they wanted. Like we would be libertarians kind of about it. But that's not. People want other people to do what they want people to have to be the same as them.
right.
That's really what a lot of like the Republicans and like conservative leaders want is like, no. I don't want to like convince you to agree what I want. Just you agree with it or you like get put in a re-education camp. Like,
Right.
That's kind of what it is.
Right. Which is interesting because, if you think about, how many translations of the Bible, how many interpretations of the Bible, so
Yeah.
my thing in the state of Texas or any other state that wants to jump on, the Bible needs to be taught in school bandwagon, then you're going to have to, really make sure they're teaching it the way you want them to teach it. I would be a terrible.
They don't have a way that they want to teach it though. That's what I think you are thinking about this more than they are. What they want is for everyone to display the same cultural signifiers that they do. They want everyone to say I'm a Christian, but you look at like, I don't know how mean I should be on this podcast, but like rest in piss, Lindsey Graham, like that. Sad. I guess at least he got to go through his last Pride Month. Like,
Yeah.
the most closeted man alive. Which again, horrible. Like I don't want anyone to have to be closeted, but like it's like kind of a bed, lie in the bed you made kind of thing. Because like that's what it is. But like it's not really about belief. It's the same thing with Trump. Like 2 Corinthians, all this stuff. Like the man doesn't read the Bible. He doesn't care about the Bible. It's a useful tool. Like that's why, and that's the thing of like I mentioned earlier about like the opiate of the masses. I think when you read into like those kind of critiques of religion, it's not that like it's anti-religion, it's that it's anti-using religion the way the state uses religion. Which is again why the founding fathers, in their infinite wisdom, even though they're a bunch of like, not the greatest guys out there,
Right.
Putting slave teeth in their mouth and owning slaves and doing even worse things to slaves in Thomas Jefferson's case.
Yep.
Who, happened to be the guy that wrote this whole thing, but basically they were like, it's bad if the state pushes a religion because they came from the Anglican Church in England. Like they knew firsthand, we don't like this. We don't like being told we have to observe a certain religion or we pay like a tax for not observing that religion. It's bullshit.
Yeah.
But again, it's just a tool of control. It's not a genuine belief for most of them. There are some that are like, I think fully invested, like sycophants for Christ. But
Mm-hmm.
like, again, which Christ are you talking about? Because most of them are Old Testament God, not even Jesus.
Right. Which I was thinking about our little town, and
Mm-hmm.
let's just say that, all of a sudden there was talk about, teaching or having the Bible brought into our classrooms in
Yeah.
our small rural school, and I think about the people that live here. I think people would be like, yeah, let's do it because of the stigma of, maybe
Saying
standing
no.
up against that, right? Because I don't want to be looked at like I'm not a Christian, whereas I don't care because I don't feel like current practices of Christianity have anything to do with Christ whatsoever.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just my opinion. But I also feel like there's a lot of proof out there for that statement as well. But
Yeah.
you know, like I just wonder how much of that stigma of, oh, people are going to think that I don't love Jesus if I go against this. But
Going
that's
along
really,
to get along is a lot of the human condition, to be
yeah,
honest. Like a lot of what people do is to not look weird in front of other people.
yeah,
So yeah, I definitely think it's a huge part of it. It's like, oh, I want to, because I mean that's what like quote unquote being polite or like, like cultural niceties
yeah,
are. Is like
yeah,
I don't want to do something that's gonna like make someone not be able to anticipate what I'm gonna do, which in turn will make them like a little bit alarmed and then like kind of like upset, not necessarily like angry or whatever, but like it will upset them because they were expecting me to do one thing and I did another. Like that's just kind of how like society works. So it makes sense, but obviously when taken like too far to like this like logical conclusion, it gets absurd and it's ridiculous and like we're just doing stuff that we know might even be bad for us, but just because it is the niceties that help us keep up with the Johnsons or whatever
right.
the phrase is,
It's
the
interesting because
Joneses.
when I have like one-on-one conversation with people, even in
Yeah,
my area, um,
yeah,
it's very eye-opening. Like
hmm
you would think, because most of these people that I work with, or communicate with, because I really
yeah.
don't like. I always say I'm kind of a hermit. I live on the hill, and that's kind of where I stay, so I don't get out much.
I
But
respect it.
but when you talk one on one with people, they think more, like there's more questions
Hmm.
about Christianity. There's more, I don't really buy into kind of like what we're seeing nowadays with just the what I consider, anti-Christ-like behavior. There, I when the Roe versus Wade was overturned. I mean, I had conversations with other colleagues that were just like,
Hmm.
that's wrong. I think women should be able to, have autonomy over their body. Shocked me because I thought I'm going to be
Yeah.
the only one in this small rural town that thinks that way. So, um, but I wonder if it was like the masses having to stand up. I wonder if it would be like, I think there would be some that would be like, no, that's ridiculous. Like
Yeah.
look at our literacy rate, look at our, funding, look at whatever across the board,
Yeah.
look at our test scores, whatever you want to look at. Those I don't think bringing the Bible into school is what we need to be doing. I think there would be some that, and there would be some teachers I think that would stand up and just go, I don't need one more thing on my plate,
Yeah.
like we were talking about earlier. So I do think there would be some that would stand up, but I always just wonder, because a lot of people in our community do go to church. And
Hmm.
so would they just say, because I consider myself a Christian, using air quotes, yeah, I'm going to say, yeah, let's bring the Bible into school. I don't
Hmm.
think I mean, I would be the first one probably to stand up and go, "You're not going to like the way I teach the Bible." If
Yeah.
that's what you want,
Yeah.
but I would also be one that stands up and says, not everybody is a Christian that comes to, I mean, you want to probably think that
Yeah.
everybody that goes to our school is a Christian, but they're not. And so you
Mhm.
just got to give me freedom to teach other religions as well, if that's the case. So I don't know that I would
Yeah.
have a job very long, especially because I'm not tenured yet,
Yeah.
but
Mm,
do, oh, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I don't know. I mean, it's just like it's hard to. I think with like a lot of that stuff, it's hard to say.
Yeah.
Um, and again, it depends on like. I think there's also a lot of people that would stand up and say, "Yeah, I'll teach the Bible in school," and then teach it like you would. So like I think there's obviously just like everything, there's like a spectrum of like how people would approach it. Um, One thing you made me think of is you were talking about how in private people are like pretty reasonable when like people are kind of in public or like when
Yeah.
you're in a group they're like dumb and it's like I mean that's like sociology like in psychology like 101 is like that's people are performative, right? We're always like wearing our mask on
Yeah.
stage and like all these things like, but I think we don't think about that enough. And but what it always makes me think of, like, because I have to teach this in like my psychology and sociology classes, and sometimes what I'll do is I'll play. There's a I don't always play, but sometimes when I think of it in class, I'll play this clip of the original Men in Black movie, which
Oh, okay.
I think you've seen.
Yeah.
But anyway, Agent J, who is like the Will Smith character, is talking to Agent K, who is I don't know who that actor
I
is.
forget.
Tommy Lee Jones or something?
Tommy Lee Jones. That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
So Agent J says they're like sitting on a park bench or something, and he like asks him like, "What's the big secret? Like, why do we have to keep it as all this a secret from everyone? Like the fact that like we know aliens exist, blah blah blah." He says people are smart or something, and Agent K goes, "A person is smart. People are dumb, panicky, dangerous animals, and you know that." It's like that's true. Like we are like
Yeah.
obviously it's like kind of like a flippant line, but it's like yeah, no. When we get in groups, like and there's evolutionary reasons for this. Like we act different ways in groups, and like in some ways that's good for us. We talked about this on the Learning Curve, the last time we recorded, which was like last Friday. My
Yeah.
whole like last like month is a blur of just like activity, but yeah, we like kind of talked about this of just like yeah, like how we kind of like engage with these things in different ways. Like I forgot the exact point I was going to make, but anyway, go watch the Unlearning Curve or listen to the Unlearning Curve.
Listen to the Unlearning Curve.
Because I probably said somebody said something interesting on there, or smart probably. I don't know. I'm like rapidly running out of brain power right
I
now.
know. That's the hard thing about recording. You're at your nighttime. So you're coming down off your day. Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt.
It's fine. But yeah, I think it is it's a tough thing, but I don't know. That's why I tend to be, I think I used to be, especially when I was younger, like a lot more cynical. And I think about certain things I still am, but like overall, for multiple reasons, just because like I am kind of like optimistic about like there being a possibility of like, people talking out or like whatever. I'm like a little bit more optimistic than I used to be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also still pretty cynical, but I've also just decided that I'm just going to be happy. So like,
yeah.
I don't know. Like I don't get that distraught over it, especially because like in America, like as long as the U.S. can survive what's going on right now, the pendulum will probably swing the other way, which is also bad, but like gives a chance to like reorganize and like think about alternatives. I don't know. I just think my biggest hope, and like I'm off on like a crazy tangent right now, and I'm sorry, but like
that's all right.
I just hope people get more creative, like with how we handle stuff. Like we don't have to follow like what we've done before, and we don't have to just like go through like the current motions, I guess.
Right.
Like we can do new stuff. Like there are things that have never been tried that we could try in terms of like how to reorient our funding or our government or our education system or whatever it is. And maybe we should, and we should test it and be careful with it, and we shouldn't just like randomly fling ourselves around. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like, especially my thing is too, is like, I hope Americans, especially Americans that like actually want America to improve, start using things like, we are the greatest country on earth, right? Like we're the richest country, which is kind of like a debatable thing because like the Qataris are also like quite rich. But anyway, like we have the biggest economy. Like no one's ever seen this on the face of the earth. Like whatever empire you want to think of, we're crazier and like more insane and like bigger and richer than, maybe not in terms of population, but basically everything else. So why can't we just be creative with it? Like, why can't we do our own thing? And like, if America again is the greatest country on earth, which a lot of Americans like to say, why can't we have the best healthcare system? Why can't we have the best educational outcomes? Like we should, and we should demand that from our elected leaders.
Yeah.
And if they don't deliver, then they should pay for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Vote the bums out.
Vote them out. Vote them out. Well, first of all, we have to get a Secretary of Education in there that cares more about education than WWE wrestling. So.
Oh, you mean doesn't want to dismantle the like actual department they're the head of? Yeah, right? I agree.
Fact. So crazy. So we've talked a lot about like religion, possibly bringing religion into the public school. So you do teach at a Catholic school. So do you guys have to teach religion there? I mean, I don't know that you do, but like, do some teachers, like, is that their coursework or whatever that they teach religion?
So yes, it's been mixed because my situation is like extremely complicated because I teach at a Catholic school, private Catholic school, but I teach in a international department. Okay. And so there are certain, this is all politics with the school and our department and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, sometimes the kids have to take like certain classes that like either are just like straight up religion or are like infused in the curriculum with religion. So the answer is they have to take them. I don't have to teach about Christianity, but I do have to teach about religion, which involves obviously teaching about, because in Catholicism, in sociology, I have to teach about different religions and like also like how religion is used, because like we have to teach about Marxism. Like they talk a lot about religion, and also like like in society, right? Like religion is a huge part. Whatever society you're in, like so, like I have to teach about it a lot. But I mean, obviously, I'm not teaching about it in like, oh, this is true, or like this is like what you should believe, or like whatever. It's like no, these are just like the effects of religion on society, depending on.
It's more of a world religion kind of thing, or just religion in general, right? It's
just how like religious hierarchies can affect a society. I guess. Like I talk about like the Iranian Revolution and like in implementing like again Sharia in countries, or like I talk about Afghanistan and that nature as well, especially recently with the Taliban taking back over. Good job, America. We almost won that war. We would have just stayed in 5 more years. Probably could have got Afghanistan. Anyway, we teach about like Catholicism and also like oh my goodness, I can't think of the phrase that I'm trying to think of right now, but basically like the split between like the state using Catholicism in like Central and South America versus there were like more radical priests like trying to use it as this kind of like, oh, I really wish I could think of the word.
Well, that's okay.
Phrase, but like emancipatory Catholicism, essentially, where they're using it as like a Jesus loved everyone and like we should use this to like make society more equal. It's basically like marrying like anarchism / Marxism and Catholicism together. But point being, it's like I don't teach about like this is this religion, this is what they believe. Like I do because the kids will ask about it, but like the curriculum is more just about like how does religion like affect society.
Yeah, I get it. Well, I mean, obviously we're not gonna solve the world's problems. We try every time we talk,
I think
JD.
we
We do
mostly
try.
did, though. I
But
think it's mostly so.
so I guess I want to kind of, and I'm not going to say that we're going to end because sometimes we like to do the Midwest thing where we say, well, we're running out of time, and then we talk for another 30 minutes. But
Anyway, it's good talking to you.
it's like the Midwest goodbye.
Two hours later.
Yeah. Um, but we were talking about I kind of alluded to the whole teacher burnout thing,
Mm-hmm.
and so I guess I want to know, like, in your opinion, with just this teaching, bringing the Bible into the classroom is kind of what I like to say, one more thing to put on teachers' plates.
Yeah.
How do we, like, help with that? How do we help with teacher burnout? Like, in your opinion, what, because we are being asked to, and I don't know if it's like, and you teach older students, correct?
I teach 8th to 12th grade, yeah.
Okay, so like you're not looking at a kindergartner coming in who needs to be independent in the bathroom, or
I've taught kindergarten before, but yeah,
yes, you
not
have.
for a few
Yeah.
years.
But that's where I see a lot of burnout. But then I'm also thinking about your age group where you have a lot of the SEL issues, right? The social emotional, and especially in those junior high, middle school years, so awkward, and there's just so much going on in the body outside of education. And so there is a lot on the educator's plate. And some of it is so incredibly important. Like I said, being trauma informed, doing social emotional you teach psychology, and I think that's so, like, I'm jumping everywhere, but like my undergraduate degree, my bachelor's is in psychology, and I'm grateful that I have that before I ever went for my master's in education, because I would always tell people like that. I feel like that is more of a good foundation for me going into the classroom than having a bachelor's in elementary education. But I say all that to be like, we know that more is going to be put on teachers' plates. I just feel like it is. Some of it is so incredibly important to be aware of in the classroom, but how do we help with that teacher burnout?
That's Don't
That's
give
a
me too
million
easy of
dollar
a
question.
question, Mom. Yeah, I was gonna
I
say
know,
that's
right? I know. And I
real
kind of went
softball, low over the plate. Yeah, I mean, I think like everything, it's like so multifaceted. Like again, like I was saying earlier, like funding both teacher salaries, support staff, but also just like having good books in the classroom, having a nice classroom, having nutritious meals in school, like all those things result in better outcomes at school. I think honestly, like we have to. This is one thing I go between is like, do I want more people to pay attention to education or not? And I don't know. Like realistically, like if people would actually pay attention to it and like dig into it, then yes. But like I know how populists are, and like usually they dig into those things and then they're just like, you need to teach more Christianity in schools or some bullshit. Like that's usually how it ends up. So I don't know, but like I think people need to like. The other thing is like we have to get serious about like technology. Like I have some students that like can't really write a fucking research paper.
Yeah.
Like just like basic skills. Like some of that stuff has to happen too, and we have to like get real. And that goes for parents, teachers, students, all the above. Like we have to get less reliant on technology, and like be comfortable with being bored and like thinking more and thinking critically and like arguing, like obviously not in a combative way, but in a constructive way. Like I don't know. I think it really could be a million. It can and has to be a million different things, I think. But
Yeah, there's, I
I
know
think
that.
a big part of it is just making more of a concerted effort as opposed to
Mhm.
just being passive about it. Because I think that's kind of like where our society, and when I say our, I mean just the world, like human society, is kind of going, is just like passivity, like make everything as easy as possible. Like I want to move from air conditioned environment to air conditioned environment. I want to, when I want to eat, I want to click a button on my phone and, have some slave like drive it up to my house for starvation
Mhm.
wages. Like it's just
Mhm.
like we can't, it's not sustainable and it's not good for us as people, in my
Right.
opinion. And again, there's a million caveats to that. Like, yeah, like most people have had food delivered and blah blah blah. Like, I'm not saying any of those things is bad in and of itself, but when we just completely rely on it and like want to always pick the easiest route, like I know I sound like a fucking boomer here, but like you gotta, like if you want to grow, if you want to get better, like whatever it is, if whether it's you know your reading ability, your like cognitive ability, you want to make your muscles bigger, like you just have to practice.
Yeah.
And like that's just all it is. Like anything that we do where it's just like we take the easier route, especially in education, like where you're just like, typing something into a large language model, like you're making yourself dumber. Like I just
I
gotta be
know.
honest. Like
I
it's
know.
just so bad for people.
Mhm.
I'm very anti, especially when we talk about education. I'm so anti AI. I
You
think that
know,
it has
yeah.
use cases. There are use
Yes.
cases, but generally speaking, I think it's such a horrible thing for humanity.
I don't know if I told you this story or not, and I won't like give a ton of specifics, but
Yeah,
I went last November to speak to the Missouri State Teachers Association. I did a
yeah,
presentation, and the board, like
yeah,
I'm using air quotes, allowed me to go. I mean, they're not hard to convince. They're just like, heck
yeah,
yeah, man, go to this. I mean, it's the MSTA. It's like the state
yeah,
convention. So yeah,
yeah.
we would love to have a representative go and speak from our school district. But I was talking to somebody. I'm trying to be very careful here because I don't want to give anything away. But
Okay, take your time.
I spoke with somebody about, yeah, I need to get a thank you like letter typed up for
Hmm.
the board to tell them, thank you for that
Yeah,
opportunity and paying for me to go, basically.
yeah.
And the, this person was like, oh, well, you can just type something into AI. And I know I must have had a look on my face like, I I know how to write a thank you letter. Like I don't need
Yeah.
AI to, but honestly, there's a thing here. I don't know if you've seen it in Taiwan, but it's called Chalky. And it's literally
Uh-huh.
AI. You can type in, here's what I want to teach my kids today, and it will do all the like slide presentations for you. I mean, there is like no, like I don't have to do anything. I refuse to do it. There are so many
No,
teachers
you
at my
should.
school
You should refuse.
that are like, "Oh my gosh, this is so great and I'm going to do it." And I'm just like, I don't want somebody I mean, I know my kids. I know what
Yeah.
they need.
Yeah.
I want to know my kids that are coming up this year and I want to know what they need and I want to be the one to give it to them. I don't want AI to
Yeah.
like do all the work for me anyway.
Plus, it's less personal, and also, like, I don't know if it's something you've been teaching a million times, or it's like a very simple thing that, like, for instance, if you were like running late and you were like, "Oh, I gotta have something,"
Yeah.
like, I could see again, I can see use cases. I wouldn't probably ever use it because I would just probably just like be like, "Okay, no slideshow today." Like, we're gonna, free ball it for better
Yeah. Yeah.
lack of a better phrase. Like,
Yeah.
but same thing. Like when I create my slides, I put like stupid pictures or like
Yeah.
references that like
Right.
my that are specific to my kids. Or
Right.
like the other thing is like I want to review that shit because like sometimes I'm teaching about like I have to remember all this like data like oh this
Uh-huh.
table 2 says like
Right.
3.75% of African Americans in this study like blah blah. I was like which is bullshit. Like no one should have to remember those kind of figures, but for their test they have to. So like I have to also kind of know it. So it's better for me to review than to just like have someone do it for me. And then like also the process of like doing that, hopefully I'm critically thinking myself, because like I know there's been multiple times where I like look something up, I was like, why is that, or that doesn't
Yeah.
seem right, and then I'll look it up and I'll be like, oh, and then in class one of my kids who I teach to be critical thinkers is like, hey, that doesn't make sense,
Right.
why is that? And I'm like, great question, glad I also looked that up.
Right.
Here's the answer. As opposed to like, there's been a few times where I just like am just going over the book and I'm like, which can also be good, but I'm like, I don't know. Let's look that up together, which
Yeah.
again can be good, but like if every time you have to look it up, like the kids are going to be like, I don't think you fucking know what you're talking about.
I know,
For real though, like
Yeah.
I have kids that like, not for me, but like for other teachers, they're like, yo, this teacher, like every time I ask them a question, they don't know what the answer is, and I'm like, you should talk to them about that. Like I
Yeah.
can't really throw my colleague under the bus, but like
I know.
might be because they're a fucking lazy piece of shit teacher. I don't know. Sorry.
I actually do like that sometimes when I don't know the answer, but it's like you said,
It can't be all the time, but yes,
it's not all the time,
but it can be useful.
Yes,
But it can be
because then I'm
useful
like,
in showing them
should
I'm not perfect either.
Yep. And like, oh, you should look that up. And some kids, I won't say all kids, but some kids will go home and they'll look stuff up and they'll come back and report out to the class. And I'm just like, yes, you can do your own research. I don't have to be the answer person. You can actually have or find your answers for yourself. You know,
what a fucking loaded term.
No, right?
So that's been on the politics podcast we used to run for the longest time. Like that was one of our main mantras, like do your own research, but like no, actually don't look at like ChatGPT. Like go to Google Scholar and like pirate a bunch of articles and like read over them and realize there's like disparate information and like, okay, there's not an answer. Like again, I said this earlier, there's not an answer. There's this data says this, and sometimes like 99% of the data says this, and sometimes 65% of the data says this, and the other like 30% says this, and 5% says this, or whatever, whatever the breakdown is. But it's like that's good for us to realize like it's more complicated and like to dive into it and be like, well, this person says this. Oh, this person. Oh, now I know how to read a bias. Like that's so much better than just being like, well, I was told the answer is this. Like it's the same issue I have, and this is a big problem in Taiwan with rote memorization, where it's just like, teacher, what's the answer? This is the answer. Remember it. What's the answer, class? 15. 15? What's the answer? 15. It's like, that's such a bad way to learn too.
Yeah.
But it's all the same thing, and it's easier and it's more efficient. And I know Dad talks about this a lot with like behavioralists. Like with the behaviorists, the idea is like, do something bad, punish you, and then you learn and then you follow directions. But it's like, yeah, that's great if you're trying to run a factory. It's not great if you're trying to run like a productive, like kind of like ever evolving, industrious, like technologically advanced society. Like that's not how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
We have to like in the reason that our education system and I'm getting off on like a crazy tangent right now, sorry, but like the reason that our education system as it exists currently exists as it does is because like the Industrial Revolution, and so we created like bell systems and things like that, so we could have good workers. That again, like to your farmer content or your farmer comment from your farmer kid earlier, like the reason why you should be able to learn is because you used to have to work in a fucking factory, because you might have been peasant farmers before, but now we don't need as many of you because we've advanced technology. We've created plows that don't choke the horses, so now we need like 10% less farmers or 25%, whatever it is. Now you got to go work in a factory. So like, yeah, you have to learn these skills. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm rambling now, but like the point being is like we are in a new paradigm now.
Right.
We need to move to that new paradigm. How can we advance? And I think a big part of it is critical thinking and like being able to do research. Because if you could teach, and I know this from kids, because I mean, I'm sure you know this too. I have a little bit shorter cycle time, but like teaching junior high and high school kids, or even like I teach adults. Like I've taught from 5 years old to 85 years old, like literally.
Right.
But like you see the kids that go from junior, like I taught 10 years ago that were in junior high and now are like graduating high school, graduating university. And like, they're like the kids that were critical thinkers that ask the questions, like the kids are fucking brilliant now. Like I have kids that are doctors and lawyers and like all kinds of stuff. And it's because they learn to like ask questions and then learn how to look it up and answer it themselves. And then
Yep.
you're like, not to say the education process is done, but like my part in that is done. Like, okay, you can learn yourself. Now just keep forcing yourself to apply that. And if you can do that, then you're a lifelong learner. That's
Yeah,
like
right.
what the goal of education is to create that.
Exactly. I think too.
Hold on one second.
Okay.
Hey, my dogs are being stupid. Sorry.
Oh, that's all right.
No, they're just getting.
We like dogs on this.
I
We like dogs on this podcast.
love my dogs. I just don't want them causing problems outside.
I can't ever hear them whenever we're on a podcast. So
You must have a good background.
Yeah, that's all right.
Cutting out ability on the mic.
Nah, we keep it pretty authentic around here. One other thing too, I've thought about is, you know, in like the perfect world scenario, and I've talked to your dad about this too, because, you know, he goes up to the school and he volunteers and things like that. But it's like, if we could just find a way to, because I don't want to overload parents either. I don't want to be like, because we got parents that are working, we've got single parent households, we got, you know, single parent households where mom or dad is working 2 to 3 jobs, you know. So I get it. Like, you don't have all the time in the world, just like educators don't have all the time in the world to teach all the things, right? But it would be so, I would love it if there could be just this coming together. And I get that there's going to be outliers, because I do have some great parents every school year. And then I do have, you know, 1 or 2 that it's like, you know what, I'm sending my kid to you for 8 hours a day, and they're yours, you know? And, but yeah, if there was a way that we could, you know, instead of it being so cut and dry, maybe like, parents, this has to be done before your kid can start kindergarten, or teachers, you know, this has to be done at this, you know, certain grade level, which, you know, part of that I get, like, because standards build on top of each other. And I get that they need to know those foundational skills before moving on to the next class or grade level. But it just would, I think it would, that's my, in a perfect world scenario. I feel like I'm a little Pollyannish when it comes to that kind of stuff. Like, can't we just all work together and, you know, and make this, but I think that would help with parent burnout as well as educator burnout, if we could somehow find a way to, and schools have tried. I mean, you know, schools do try to get community involvement and things like that. But I do feel like there's just going to be those parents that step up every single time. And then there's going to be those parents that just, you know, for lack of a better way to describe it, just might need more parenting education, you know, because maybe that's, you know, and that goes back to that generational trauma, you know. I mean, we could do a deep dive into that. I mean, so much of that is a generational thing. Like, they don't really know how to educate their child because that wasn't given to them, because it wasn't given to, you know, you could go back so far and kind of see the generational trauma, if you will. But yeah, there's just a lot there to unpack and uncover. But in my opinion, I just think, like, going back to what we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, you know, I just think keeping those things separate, like, keep church and church, and keep, you know, reading, writing, arithmetic, and as well as some other things, because I do believe that being a trauma informed teacher and teaching those social emotional ways of being is an important part of education, especially after COVID, you know. So, but I don't know, that, like I said, that's a very simplistic way of looking at things, and I know it's not always simple.
Well, but I think that's part of it is like, I think a lot of it comes down to we do have to like actually engage with each other, like, and this is like something that I harp on endlessly, which is just like we gotta all like just log off and like actually engage with our communities, because like when you do, you realize like people aren't as scary, and like the issues aren't as like insurmountable as like they sound on, you know, CNN or whatever. Like,
Mhm.
but it is like one thing you were saying, like talking about, you know, parents that need more parenting, like teaching kids that are older and like are kind of figuring that stuff out is like both like easier, I think, probably to like some degree, but also like more difficult, because like the amount of times I've had to tell kids like, hey, listen, this is fucked up, like, but you kind of got to be a parent to your parents. They're
Yeah.
like, my parents like complaining about this bullshit again, like they complain about it all the time. Like, listen, like you got to have, you know, the conversation. And like, you know, some of my kids are 15, 16, 17 years old. They're like, no, fuck that, like my parents, like they're like shitty to me, or like didn't understand me, like fuck them. And I'm like, I get that,
Yeah.
but like if you actually want to make them change, and like I use you guys as examples all the time, like listen, I had disagreements with my parents, and probably, of course we still do if we, you know, dove in deep enough, but like, I mean, I had like tough conversations with my parents, and like I'm not the only reason, maybe probably not even the sole reason they came around. It may have been the reason that I was having those conversations because you guys instilled like critical thinking into me in the first place. So maybe it's your own doing that has caused you guys to, like, pull over this way. But like, I'm like, my parents have come like a long way. Like they have like changed their beliefs like significantly because they've like listened to reason and things like that. And like, if you really want change, like that's kind of like what it is. And what I tell them is like, if you want change, like you have to like kind of push for it. Like you can't just hope things change.
Right.
It's just not realistic. Like,
Yeah.
and it's gonna be messy and uncomfortable, and it's gonna suck. Um, but like dunking on some asshole in the comments of like some Reddit post or like a, you know, Instagram post, it doesn't do anything. Like
Right.
most of the times that's a bot. And like second of all, like why wouldn't you like instead of doing that, like have a conversation with your what who, you know, insert X person that you know here, like friend, relative, whatever, like have that conversation. That's going to be much better. But again, it's messy and uncomfortable, and
Yeah.
people don't want to do that. So it's just like,
Right.
but yeah, that's I think that's like, again, there are no simple solutions, but in terms of like if we want to really fix stuff, I think that's what it's got to be. It's like we got to look more local and like actually talk to our fucking neighbors as
Right.
opposed to just, you know,
I think when
do the American thing and hope we're all just gonna like strike it rich and then just be super
yeah,
influential and whatever.
I do think that, and I love what you say because we don't have to make this global, you know, change, so to speak. I mean,
Yeah.
it really does need to start with like just your neighbors. And I see that just in our own situation. I mean, there's neighbors that I never thought I would be communicating with, and yet
Mm-hmm.
here we are. There's
Yeah.
conversations that I've had with colleagues that I thought, oh, they're like, if they really knew what I believe, what I think, you know,
Mm-hmm.
about certain things, they'll just roast me. And
Yeah.
that couldn't be any further from the truth. But we do get very scared because we always look at things on a global level, right? We're always on our devices. We're looking at,
Yeah.
what's going on Instagram, what's going on Facebook. And yeah, those might be your friends, but it's also just, I don't know. Like, I don't really know how the algorithms and all that other kind of stuff works. So it's like you do see a lot more than just your friends, right? Because if you
Yeah.
post something, you might get
Most.
comments from, wherever, or you follow people on Instagram that are, have a
Well,
huge
and they show
platform.
you all kinds of stuff that's like not your friends. Like I mean, if
Right.
I go on Facebook, Instagram, I don't have Twitter anymore, but like when I had Twitter, like most of what you're seeing is not like people you follow. It's not people you
Exactly.
actually know. It's just random memes and stuff because
Hmm.
that's what drives engagement. Yeah, it's the same thing. Like they either want you to be like, you know, they want you to be feeling some strong emotion, so they're just going to feed you like the most, whatever it is, like whether
Right.
it's like things that are like stimulating. Yeah, it's just that stuff that's stimulating, whether it's like it makes you angry or happy or whatever. Like
Hmm.
they're just trying to get you fired up, because then you
Exactly.
stay on the platform and you engage with the platform and you make comments and you get in arguments with like, but it's just like, yeah, it's not useful. The other thing is like, I think when it comes to like you were talking about like kind of like realizing that it's not that big of a deal, and like kind of like it's the whole thing of like, well, you didn't die, right? Like,
Hmm.
but like there will be times when like I've engaged with people close to me, and like there have been times when like they hit me with something hard, like whether it's like they're just like really honest with me or they're like more combative than I expected. But
Hmm.
again, you learn like through that experience, like, oh, I'm not going to die. Like it's fine. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't really matter. And like in most cases, if you don't freak out when that happens, like when I've had I've had students blow up at me, I've had friends blow up at me, I've had people cry, I've had people tell me like very shocking things. Like I've had students talk about self harm, like all
Hmm.
kinds of stuff. But like actually, and when you first start experiencing it, it's fucking overwhelming. But like you get, and you have to like be careful not to like grow numb to it. But like you also
Right.
like realize, okay, not gonna die. How can I deal with this? Okay, and then the more experience, the more research you do about it, like it becomes, not to say it's like it's nothing, because it is still a big deal every time it happens, and you have to take time to like take care of yourself and relax and things like that. But like it's not the end of the world. And like if you actually engage with those things, you realize like, oh, like for me, like I dealt with some of those things that was like I had like sometimes hard conversations with students that I didn't really want to have, but I thought would be good for them or would be good for the relationship between the two of us, or would be better for the school, whatever it was. And
Hmm.
then it improved. Like, not to say again that it was like 100% better from
Right.
that point out. Like, we may have had other subsequent conversations, but
Uh-huh.
like at least it improved, as opposed
Right.
to like not doing anything about it and letting it fester.
Which I think goes back to what you were saying about, when we were talking about like, you know, generational trauma and parents needing parenting and things like that. Which, to be fair, like you talked about earlier, we all need to continue to be lifelong learners. But when you can have those
Mm,
conversations, and when, like, I love that you encourage your students to, in a respectful way, have those conversations with parents and maybe use us as an example and stuff like that, because that's where I think you can break some of that
yeah,
generational stuff, right? Because
yeah.
it's like, if we hold all that in, if we don't question it, then we're liable to kind of repeat the cycle. That's the way I look at like you three kids,
Mm,
is that you guys were like, you're figuring stuff out before we did, and not just taking things at face value. And like that's where I see, like, of course, there were things from my upbringing
mm,
that I wanted to be sure that I didn't pass on to you guys because it was detrimental to me.
yeah.
But, you know, I love seeing that. I love seeing, and that's the thing too, is that, our students can, in a respectful way, parent their parents, especially the older kids like you're talking about.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But I mean,
In third grade, I still get a lot of kids that go, "Well, my mom taught me," and I'm like, "All
yeah,
right,
I get that in high school as well, so it's okay. I just say like, okay, well, let's start applying that.
yeah,
But I mean, listen, like, to be like frank, like I've had kids parent me, where like I've had kids be like, hey, you said this thing to me and it like fucked me up, and I'm like,
yeah,
Jesus Christ, like.
yeah,
But I think, but that's the point. I mean, like, I'm not a parent, like I don't know what that feels like. The closest thing I have is like my students, but like
yeah,
I get where some people might like push back. Like obviously, like some parents like can't take criticism, but like for me, is like, yeah, like how could you not, when a kid comes up to you and is like, hey, like you did this thing, or like you said this thing in a way and like I took it kind of fucked up, like
mm-hmm,
let's talk about that. Like
mm-hmm,
that's a great way to have like progress. And I think, I don't know, like again, like I try to push my kids in that way. I'm like, just like we had a conversation where it's like, we made some progress. Like, not everything's perfect, right? We still have like we might have beef or whatever at certain points, but like for the most part, like we got through it. Why don't you try their parents? And like again, generally has at least positive results. It may not be like at the speed
Yeah.
that most people want, right? But like
Right.
it's something.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's tough, but it's just like I think that's just like what we need to do as people more. It's just have those conversations. Just ask. The other thing is like ask questions.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I talked about this a lot on the previous Unlearning Curve, but it's just like ask people questions, and sometimes that's all you need. Like you don't have to tell people like you're wrong or whatever. Just be like,
Right.
okay, what about this? What about this?
Mhm.
Okay, you say this, but like, what about applying it in these instances, et cetera, et cetera. You just keep going with that, and then I don't know. I've had kids that I've done that with. They're like, the next week, they're like, yeah, you know what I said earlier. I don't know if I believe that anymore. Like, I kind of think this. Like, I found this sort. Blah, blah. It's like, okay, yeah, cool. Like the now we're on to a different discussion.
Right.
But again, it builds trust, the relationship, always.
And that's what we need to do when it comes to teaching the Bible in school. We need to go, but how will it look if we apply it to this?
Just read the most ridiculous verses. Again, like I always go for the fun ones.
Yeah.
But like my favorite one that I always go to with like the kids, because like mine, obviously I teach a Catholic high school.
Right.
Most of the kids are not like at all religious,
Mm-hmm.
and if they are, they're like Taoist or Buddhist.
Right.
So it's like kind of funny. But like we'll talk about religion because like we do in my classes. But I always give them when they're like I'll ask them like, what's your favorite verse? If like I know they've read the Bible, and most of them are just like, I don't know, like I don't know any verses by name, but I always tell them like 2 Kings 2:23-24, which is the story of Elisha going up to Bethel.
Mm-hmm. You're gonna have to. I don't know it.
You know this? Okay.
I was just a pastor's wife for 20 years. I didn't read the Bible.
This is not
Sorry.
For some, and you may recognize why this might be after I read this verse, but like there might be a reason you don't know it. But this is my point about the Bible: is there's so much inane stuff,
right?
But it makes it fun, right? So anyway, 2 Kings 2:23-24 says he went up from there to Bethel, and when he was going up the way, some small boys came out of the city and jeered at him, saying, "Go up, you bald head! Go up, you bald head!" And he turned around, and when he saw them, he cursed them in the name of the Lord. And 2 she-bears came out of the woods and ate the 42 boys. Sorry, tore the 42 boys. That's a great verse.
It is. And
don't make fun of bald people. That's fucked up.
Yeah, but also like, wow. Like, just wow.
Yeah.
Oh, they're so...
Sometimes God has to smite 42 young boys for talking shit on Elijah in his bald ass head.
Yeah, whatever. Oh my gosh.
That's so what crazy. I like to do though, because the other thing that's fun is like, I mean, obviously like some really reformed Christians will have like the discussion of like, well, there's a new covenant, like Jesus is the new covenant, blah, 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 whatever. Okay, sure, fine. If that's what you want to say, like then, but make sure you don't follow any of the Old Testament. Like, don't even mention, like, honestly, rip the Old Testament out of your Bible if that's what you think. Like, just get rid of it. I mean, I guess learn history, so maybe don't, but anyway. But like, for people that like reference the Old Testament and they're like, oh, well, like, Leviticus says it's like not okay to be gay. I'm like, yeah. Also, like, are you wearing polyester? You fucking piece of shit. Like, you should be stoned. Like, I have bricks. Let's go out to my backyard. I don't have a backyard. Let's go out to my front yard and we'll deal with that. It's just bullshit. It's just bullshit. But anyway.
Yeah. No.
I'm getting fired up about it. But the point being is like, again, to go back to our beginning of this discussion, it probably won't matter because when in times like this, when the fascists are doing fascist shit, if you sow discontent, most people are going to agree with you because people do not like being controlled. The human spirit doesn't like to be controlled, even though we think we do, and we'll ask for it sometimes. Once we get under that control, we will buck it every time.
Yeah, I agree. That is a great place to land for this time, anyway. I do like our conversations. I mean, I feel like, man, we just came full circle. We talked about a lot of things, but we came full circle. But I just want to plug one more time the Unlearning Curve, because every week you'll get to hear Carl, Jordan, and Stuart talk about some of these things, and it is good. That's all I got to say. It's funny, it's sarcastic, it's lighthearted in places, but I always learn something, and I enjoy listening to you guys get together. So, and I love this summer because then I can like sit off to the side and listen firsthand as you guys are doing it. So
it's usually me after like 20 hours of being awake. So I'm just
I know. And so I'm trying to be a little respectful of your time as your mother, right? Because you got to go to bed, you got to get your sleep. But
listen, I will absolutely just like ramble and talk for 20 hours straight. It's fine.
No, I love it.
Yeah. But sometimes tomorrow, my friend just called me. He's like, "Oh, I got to take a flight tomorrow. Can you come to my hotel at 7 a.m. tomorrow?"
Oh gosh.
To help me carry bags. And I was like, yeah, I'm able to do that technically, so I guess I will. Yeah. Then my summer is just fricked. Like everything is just busy, but
yeah,
it's invigorating to some degree. Makes you tired, but it's also like,
yeah, I get it. But well, I'm glad we got to sit down and chat about this, because it is something that's kind of been, on my mind lately about, separation of church and state and bringing the Bible into schools. And so we'll just have to see how it all pans out. But
we can hopefully do this more regularly. And if you give me a little bit more time, and I can try to dig into the research a little bit more.
Yeah, more than me.
Debatable. Depends on the time. But the point being is today I didn't have any time. So
but you did,
I didn't get much done.
But you did end our podcast with the scripture. So for that I say thank you.
Scriptures I can always do. It's easy. You just type in you can type in anything and then just type Bible and there will be something after it. Like I legitimately almost challenge people to just be like, oh, there's nothing I could type about, like, let me think of something random. Let's end this with another Bible verse. I already did the mixed fabric ones. What else can we do? There's something, let's say education, Bible. Okay. Let's see what comes up. All right. So what does the Bible say about education? Openbible.info. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. I mean, I agree with that. I mean, fools do despise wisdom and instruction. Amen.
That's true. Amen and amen.
And I mean, we were talking about parents earlier. Like, you could also say, train up a child in the way that he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. Like, that sounds great. It's not true. Like,
it's not true.
People change their mind. Like,
right.
But it sounds nice. And like, if that was the way I felt, like, that would make me feel good.
Right.
And it's nice to feel good. But
That's right.
One thing is I can do this forever. But it's it is fun. And the point is, again, we can use the Bible however we want. If we want to weaponize it, we can. And I hope that if teachers are forced to teach it in Texas, that they do weaponize it. For good, obviously, for love.
I have nothing.
Love bomb your students.
Love bomb your students. Teachers. Oh boy.
Just kidding.
And on that note, we want to thank everybody for joining us today. I like to just say, even if there's nobody that listens, I'm grateful to have conversations with my son, and I've had conversations one-on-one with other people that we've recorded as podcasts. And so it's good for my soul. Does me more good than going to church. So, but as Carl would say, be where you are, be who you are, and be at peace. Until next time, adios. Thank you for joining us today on the Desert Sanctuary podcast.
Remember, all who wander in the desert are not lost.
We believe all of our stories are sacred.
We are always here if you need someone to hear your story.
Check out our blog on Pathos and also our YouTube channel.
And stay tuned for our Leaning Forward conference.
Remember, we love you.
And be at peace.